Hey everyone, welcome back to the SCPT show. This is going to be episode 6, and today's topic is a little bit different from what I typically talk about on here, but I thought it was very relevant. So in early January, the American Academy of Pediatrics released new childhood obesity guidelines, which recommend the use of drugs for children ages 12 and above and surgery for children ages 13 and above to treat childhood obesity. Let that sink in for a second. So we are talking about injections weekly for children 12 and up for obesity and weight loss surgeries for 13 and older for treating obesity. All right, now that I've kind of introduced the topic, I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about this, how I feel about it, where I think the American Academy of Pediatrics may have some things wrong, and some of the fallacies that I saw within the article after reading it myself. Additionally, this does not serve as medical advice in any way. This is just simply my take on it as a fitness professional. I'm not a doctor, nor do I claim to be. And I'm not a parent either, nor will I ever be. So if you are a parent, definitely don't take this as medical advice whatsoever. Feel free to agree with me, disagree with me, either way. But I just kind of wanted to get my statements out here and my feelings out here, and I guess sort of challenge this in a little bit of a healthy way, leading to some discourse, rather than to get on here and just crap on the American Academy of Pediatrics or anything like that. I wanted to open up a respectful conversation sort of about these guidelines and see if we can all make steps toward making healthier change for children, adults, and anybody that may be struggling with obesity. All right. So first thing is, if you are struggling with obesity, I empathize with you. I don't want to sound like a jerk or anything like that, because everybody struggles. I'm a fitness professional now, but I can't say I've always been the fittest person my entire life. And I understand that it's not easy to just eat less and move more, nor am I advocating for that. I, in fact, have an entire video on my page about why I never say eat less, move more to a client. I just wanted to dive a little bit deeper into this particular problem while this is fresh and a new guideline. So if you are somebody that is struggling, feel free to comment or reach out to me. Email me at morgansscpt@gmail.com. You can DM me on Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter, or anything like that. And if you do so, I would be happy to chat with you and get you set up in the right direction to sort of start making the change to be a little bit healthier. All right? So now that that's out of the way, let's dive into this a little bit. So the first thing I thought about when reading this article was that after considering it, nowhere in the article did it say that doctors were required to prescribe diet and lifestyle changes first. Now, I could be entirely wrong, and it could be standard practice for doctors to prescribe those things before taking these more extreme measures. However, it did not say so in the article and the many other articles on this subject that I have read. Therefore, I'm going to address this as if it's not standard practice. First of all, no amount of surgeries and weight loss drugs are going to work without diet and lifestyle changes. You're just throwing money away if that's what you're doing. How many times have you seen an adult get a weight loss surgery and then just gain all the weight right back, right? Now, this could be a lack of lifestyle changes. And that's the thing. It doesn't need to be this whole huge intervention of I'm going to go keto for the rest of my life. This could be something where it's just a little bit more subtle and, I'm going to skip fast food, or French fries are not a daily part of my diet anymore, or I don't drink soda. And those things could go a long way to making some of these lifestyle changes to ensure that these procedures actually work. So my biggest concern here is that doctors might be too eager to prescribe these things and look for the quick solution rather than addressing diet and lifestyle factors. So that's the first concern I have there. And now next thing I guess I'm looking at is if this 12-year-old comes in and is obese, right? That didn't happen overnight, right? So what has the doctor been doing up until the child is age 12? Now, I understand that doctors don't have a lot of influence over people or families. Doctors can tell people, oh, stop eating this, stop doing that, and it's just going to go in one ear and right out the other. But I guess my bigger question is what has been going on from the time that the child was initially overweight to morbidly obese in the 95th percentile to qualify for these procedures, right? So I guess I'd want to know a little bit more information about what goes on between point A and point B. Now, another thing I wanted to bring up is that I realize that obesity can be genetic and biological, and there's nothing you can do about it. I do understand there are cases like that, but I'd say that that makes up about maybe 1% of people who are obese, and the other 99% are not special snowflakes, all right? So let's get that out of the way. And I do understand that some people are predisposed to being a little heavier than others and being a little bigger, and that's okay. But being in the 95th percentile and being morbidly obese to that point, most of the time is not entirely genetic, and there usually is some more things that you can do about it, all right? So with that, how are doctors addressing lifestyle? Are they looking at the client, the 12-year-old client, and is this something where the doctor is going to tell you, oh, just eat less? And that's certainly not going to work. I remember being a little bit of a bigger kid and my pediatrician talking to me about eating less. That didn't work because I was hungry, right? And you can't just tell a hungry kid to not eat so much. My pediatrician would tell me to cut my meal in half and only eat half of it. However, that obviously did not work because I was still hungry because I had been used to eating a greater amount, right? And I found that advice, now looking back on that advice, I found that to be very harmful because it put into my mind that I should eat less and be hungry rather than eat foods that are more satiating. Now, I know that doctors can't prescribe more protein because for some reason the American dietary guidelines are against protein, which is the number one stupidest thing I've ever heard, considering that protein is the macronutrient that will, number one, help you build muscle. More muscle you have, the more carbs you can burn, the more flexibility you can have in your diet when you have muscle. Number two, protein is the most satiating macronutrient. So I'm not going to eat as much protein to feel full as I would have to with carbs, fats, and all those other good stuff, right? So are doctors now thinking about protein intake? Because they should be. They should be talking about protein and not eating less, or they should be talking about foods that will make you feel full without eating quite as much food. Like, not once did my doctor talk to me about protein, sweet potatoes, cooking at home, things like that. They didn't talk to my parents about that either, and instead they just said, oh, just cut the meal in half and only eat half. Well, I'm not going to be full, right? And if a client is not full, they will not stick to their diet. It is very simple how that is going to work, right? So I guess my question is, have some of these doctors tried some unconventional medical advice to get to this problem? Because I guarantee you that having too much protein or red meat or whatever is going to be a lot healthier for most people than being morbidly obese to the point that they need weight loss surgeries, right? Yeah. Now, next up is activity, right? Because diet and exercise both play a role here. So, as for activity, PE class is entirely done wrong, right? It is like 45 minutes a day. You do your group exercises, you do some running, and then body weight stuff, and maybe you play a little sports game where in the sports game it's not that monitored, where some kids are going to go really hard and try really hard, like the fit kids, and the fat kids are not going to do that. They're just kind of sit around and avoid activity as much as possible, right? So the PE model is clearly not working. So how can we adjust that, right? Is it possible that we could implement a little more strength training into PE, but instead of doing things like body weight exercises like push-ups that most fat kids can't do, could we start doing some light resistance training? Resistance training is a great way for overweight people to get into shape because there's long rest times. It doesn't seem too difficult to do for most kids. So is there a way that we could start introducing that a little bit younger into our PE system rather than just shaming fat kids who can't push up their own body weight? Instead, why don't we start bench pressing with like some light dumbbells, right? Because those bigger kids are going to be able to handle those. So can we fix the PE system a little bit? Additionally, let's look at youth sports for a minute, right? Youth sports are ridiculously priced, okay? Like, I don't know what is going on in people's heads that think that that's okay to do, but if we could make youth sports more accessible, then I genuinely believe that this would be less of a problem because even cheaper sports like basketball are ridiculous with the AAU fees, the sneakers, the gym clothes, right? So is there a way to make these sports a little bit more accessible so that more kids would want to participate in these? Because I think that organized youth sports is a lot more effective than physical education class for kind of curbing this obesity problem, right? So is there a way that we could mainstream youth sports a little bit more and make them more accessible? Or is there a program where we could have youth sports where obese kids maybe get off a little bit cheaper if the families can't afford it? Or perhaps making youth sports part of our recommendation before looking to surgery and weight loss pills, right? Okay. Now, another factor here that I want to look at is obese parents, right? So these kids, these 12 and 13-year-olds, obviously can't drive themselves to the pediatrician, right? So my question is the pediatrician looking at the parents too? Because a lot of the time, you aren't going to see two very fit parents and an obese kid. So is the pediatrician having these conversations with the parents, even without the kids in the room? For example, like, are the parents resistance training and eating whole foods? Because if that's the case, I guarantee you that that kid is not going to be obese to that extent. So what kind of example are the parents setting, I guess? And now, are the parents' doctors not doing anything about them being overweight, providing diet and exercise change? So we have to look at the entire picture because chances are the times that the kids are this obese, the parents are extremely obese as well. So could there be a possible situation where the pediatrician starts working with the parents as well? While I understand that these are two very different practices between youth medicine and adult medicine, would it be possible to maybe get some family doctors that would possibly look at some of these lifestyle factors a little bit more to sort of get the whole family on the right path rather than just focusing on, oh, my client is Jerry the dad, or oh, my client is Susie the kid, right? So how can we kind of make this a household decision rather than putting it all onto one person? Because if you are an obese kid and your parents just go eat fast food and you have to eat chicken and rice and broccoli, that's just not going to work, right? So we have to look at this as a whole picture a little bit more and start looking at the obese parents before we look to the obese kids, all right? So this brings me to the next question of, is this a lifestyle or a biological problem, right? So a lot of people like to think that obesity is genetic because, you have obese parents and an obese kid. Has there been any studies that have looked at if we feed the healthy family and the obese family the same things, are the results going to be just the same where we still have an obese family and a healthy family? Or is this a little bit more about inputs and outputs? Is the healthy family more active about getting on walks together? Do they maybe have a dog that they need to walk? Do the healthy families go to the gym together? Do they have a home gym where the kids watch them exercise? Does mom take her son to the gym to show him how to exercise? Are they cooking at home most of the time or eating out and doing a lot of fast food? So what's going on there? Is it a lifestyle or a biological problem? Honestly, the answer is probably both, because there's definitely people with more of a predisposition to obesity. However, can we look a little bit deeper into the lifestyle factors? Oh yeah, absolutely. So now that that's covered, let's look at some of the main factors that are causing childhood obesity. So number one, we've got soda, right? There is no way to deny that soda is the number one source of liquid calories in America. It's not your coffee with your coffee mate. It's not even the Starbucks Frappuccinos. It's soda. So what can we do about that? Especially with obese kids, right? Because most obese kids, it's really liquid calories and things like soda and milkshakes that are causing this, more so than the actual food they're eating, right? So, because even if you cook at home, if a kid is having a soda with every meal or having a soda and playing video games, that's going to do so much more damage than whatever you cook at home or even the fast food you get, right? So, is there a possible way to start looking a little more at soda? Is it possible that we could raise the minimum age to purchase soda? We have an alcohol age, right? So, why don't we raise the soda age a little bit? Because I remember back in California, back home, there was this middle school that was right by this McDonald's. And every day after school, these 6th, 7th, and 8th graders would walk themselves over to the McDonald's and purchase a Happy Meal and a giant soda, even before the parents picked them up. Now, obviously, the parents have to be enabling this a little bit to give them money, but if the kids, let's say, get an allowance or something, the parents may not know that they're going to McDonald's every day and having a soda. So would it be possible to raise the age of soda consumption to be like 16, maybe? Now, this obviously isn't going to be as strict as alcohol, but would it be possible that maybe fast food places don't offer sodas to young kids, perhaps? Or, obviously we wouldn't be able to restrict that as much. Or maybe a kid can't buy a 12-pack of sodas from the grocery store without a parent being there. Obviously, I know this isn't the main problem, but sort of disallowing the sodas when kids are getting fast food or out at a restaurant would seriously cut the soda consumption and could be very helpful. So that's just an idea I have. I know logistically it would be pretty much impossible to do, but I don't know, just throwing gusto into the wind here. Additionally, let's talk a little bit about the fast food, because that's another huge area that is causing some of this obesity problem. I understand parents are very busy. I understand kids are busy, and it's just crazy nowadays, and it's a lot to expect to be cooking every meal at home. I do understand that, but could we have some different standards when it came to fast food? Could we have our kids' meals being healthier, just as healthy as the adult meals when we go to restaurants? Instead of kids being instructed to order chicken tenders, grilled cheeses, and burgers, could we add some things onto the kids' menu, like, chicken, meat, tofu, Asian food, something else? There's other stuff that we could add to the kids' menu that isn't so hyper palatable, because here's the problem. Kids grow up eating chicken tenders and ordering kids' meals. Those adults also order chicken tenders and eat like children, because you have to introduce kids to some of those foods earlier in life so that they don't expect that they're going to get to eat chicken tenders for their whole life, right? So we've kind of got to look at that a little bit and sort of raise our standards when it comes to things like that. And the last thing here I wanted to touch on was school lunches. I remember being a kid buying school lunches. They were always filled with fat and carbs and very, very minimal protein. I understand that that's because protein's more expensive and it's harder to produce and it's cheaper, and now we've got people saying that protein's bad for you or that meat's bad for you and that we should all go vegan, which is BS. However, could we look into school lunches a little bit and consider what we are feeding our kids and raise the quality of that? How hard can that be? Because this is a serious issue, and we need to start reflecting this issue within the way we're looking at nutrition. Now, I'm not saying that external factors like soda, fast food, and school lunches are the most to blame. I'd say that a lot of this kind of comes down to the doctors and the pediatricians sort of having a little bit more of, per se, guts to look into the lifestyle factors and kind of go off of just prescribing things right away, and maybe getting a little bit more context into what is going on in the family's life. However, again, these are a lot of unanswered questions, and I'm not recommending anything. None of this serves as an official recommendation. Just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about these new guidelines and ask this overarching question for everybody to just look beyond the surface, right? Can we all make a commitment, whether you're a doctor, a parent, a child, an adult that doesn't want kids or whatever, can we all make a commitment to look a little bit further beyond the surface before going to extremes like that? All right? I hope I gave you some stuff to think about, and as always, continue living happy, healthy, and active, and as always, see you next time.